Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this virtual meeting. These are my disclaimers. So, during the first decades of antiretroviral therapy, patients had to cope with many adverse events related to antiretroviral treatment, most of them with a common origin on mitochondrial toxicity. During the last 2 decades, we have gone through new drugs, less toxic drugs, but however, patients continue reporting some adverse events, and we have to face renal dysfunction or bone mineral density, basically related to tenofovir disoproxil use. Some also we have to cope with increased cardiovascular risk related to abacavir use, with gastrointestinal complaints, lipid profile abnormalities, and of course, many drug-drug interactions related to the use of boosters, ritonavir, and cobicistat. And recently, we also have heard a lot about CNS adverse events and BMI increase related to use of integrase inhibitors. So in this scenario, almost, although it has improved respect to the past decades, we continue to need alternatives to avoid and mitigate treatment-associated toxicities. And here are some suggestions. If we want to avoid kidney function impairment or bone mineral density decrease or cardiovascular risk increase, then we can avoid those nucleosides associated with these adverse events, TDF or abacavir, and we can move to tenofovir alafenamide, the new prodrug of tenofovir, or we can do a dual therapy with dolutegravir 3TC. If we choose for switching from TDF to TAF, we have results from the 1018 study. It was in patients on a stable therapy containing TDF plus 3 agent, and they were randomized, a big trial, they were randomized to continue with the TDF or to switch from TDF to TAF. After 2 years of follow-up, switching TDF to TAF showed to be equally effective for maintaining viral suppression in these patients. And this change resulted in increases in bone mineral density, both in the hip and in the spine, and also the renal biomarkers improve after changing TDF to TAF. If we want to change from TDF or abacavir to dual therapies, we don't have a specific trials on this, but we have a change to dual therapy with a Tango study. In this study, patients had to already be on treatment with TAF-based treatments, and the study consisted of switching to dual therapy, dolutegravir plus 3TC, or continuing under the current regimen. And after 1 year of follow-up, dual therapy showed to be non-inferior to triple therapy. So switching to this option could be also an effective option for these patients if we want to avoid TDF or abacavir-related toxicities. So if the problem is lipid abnormalities or gastrointestinal symptoms, we say that is mainly related to the use of booster, then we can change to unboosted regimens. And we have different options. I point here, we can change to doravirine, rilpivirine, or unboosted integrase inhibitors. So I brought some examples. If we want to change to doravirine, we have the drive shift study. It was suppressed patients under a boosted PI or elbaitegravir, and the patients were randomized to continue on the same treatment or changing to triple therapy with doravirine plus 3TC and TDF in a single tablet regimen. The primary endpoint was 24 weeks, and we can see that changing to doravirine was as effective as continue on the triple boosted regimen, and when stopping the boosters resulted in an increase, an improvement in lipid levels. Okay, the other option is changing to another unboosted regimen. In this case, bictegravir plus C3C, FTC, and TAF, BF-TAF. We have data from the 1878 study. Patients, suppressed patients coming from boosted atazanavir or darunavir, and randomized to continue the same treatment or switching to BF-TAF. And after 1 year of follow-up, the same. Changing to this unboosted regimen was non-inferior compared to continue with the old boosted PI regimen. However, in this study, no significant changes in cholesterol levels were observed, and only mild decreases in triglycerides concentrations. So if the problem is avoiding drug interactions, you know that drug interactions are continue to be an important issue in our patients on antiretroviral treatment. These interactions are mostly driven by the use of boosters, ritonavir and cobicistat, and we can ameliorate this problem if we go to unboosted regimens, and as I said before. This is based on the Liverpool website, and as you can see, boosted regimens are associated with higher number of clinically significant drug interactions compared with unboosted integrase inhibitors or newer NNRTIs such as doravirine or rilpivirine. One option that can be useful to accomplish all these objectives: less kidney and bone toxicity, less cardiovascular risk increase, less lipid abnormalities, gastrointestinal disturbances, drug interactions, etc., is the combination to the dual therapy with cabotegravir plus rilpivirine long-acting. We have this data, switch data from the LATE-2 study, although I don't think it's a real switch study. Patients in this study were naive patients that were treated with oral therapy with cabotegravir plus abacavir and 3TC for 6 months. And then once suppressed under this regimen, participants were randomized to continue on oral treatment or to change to cabo plus rilpivirine IM every 4 or every 8 weeks. After 2 years of follow-up, intramuscular treatment was non-inferior to oral treatment, and administration every 8 weeks was almost superior to oral treatment. So it was a very effective treatment and a very promising treatment. Moreover, participants were very happy with injections, and as you can see in this slide, when participants were asked, those allocated to IM arms were highly satisfied with the injections compared to those patients in the oral arm. So in summary, we come with multiple new effective and safe treatment options to manage potential treatment-derived toxicities. And these allow us for tailoring antiretroviral treatment based in patient needs and characteristics. However, we have to be conscious of several caveats. So when we are going to switch antiretroviral treatment, we have to consider previous history of failures because of the possibility of archive resistance mutations. And there are some open questions. We still don't have a long-term experience with TAF. We don't know kidney or bone or lipids effects at the long term. And recently, the use of TAF have been also related with BMI increases. So how relevant is BMI's increase in participants on treatment with integrase inhibitors with or without TAF in our populations? We have data coming mainly from Africa in advanced patients starting antiretroviral treatment. And we know that BMI increases in our populations are not so remarkable, but we don't know which is going to be the relevance in this population. There are some pending questions with dual therapies, the possibility of pharmacological sanctuaries, the effect on the viral reservoir in submucosas or lymph nodes, or some anatomical compartments, as well as on inflammation. And specifically with the combination of cabotegravir plus rilpivirine long-acting, we will see how the patients' reported outcomes in real life are, if patients are so satisfied in real life as participants in clinical trials were. And there is also another open questions regarding treatment failures and eventual resistant mutation selection, especially in women or in patients with a high BMI. So thank you for your attention.